Hello. Another beautiful day. I decided to do the read aloud outside. We're picking back up with Avon and Connor at a support group for people with Tourette's syndrome. And they've been talking to Dexter, a new kid they met there, who keeps uncontrollably yelling the word chicken. Dexter laughed out loud and shouted, "Chicken!" And the other kids softly chuckled a bit, and I liked Dexter already. At least, if you had Tourette's. The completely monotone, expressionless girl sitting across from me said, "You wouldn't have to worry about slapping yourself in the face all the time like I do." And as though on cue, the girl slapped herself in the face. "Yeah," said Connor, "but you should see what Avon can do with her feet. Face slapping isn't that far-fetched." "I want to see what you can do with your feet," Dexter said. "Maybe later if we have some time and Avon doesn't mind," Andrea said, smiling. She clearly enjoyed the light-hearted conversation amongst us kids, and honestly, so did I. Andrea turned her attention to Connor and said, "Introduce yourself to us, Connor." "Hi, I'm Connor. I do have Tourette's, as if you couldn't tell." Then he barked. "Well, welcome, you two," Andrea said. "We're so happy to have you. Why don't you go all around and introduce yourself, and we'll start with Dexter." "Chicken! I'm Dexter, as you can see, and I love to say, chicken!" Connor gaped at Dexter. "I have to know, why chicken? Why not another word?" "Dexter has a rarer form of Tourette's that's called coprolalia," Andrea explained. "He says words and phrases, some of which some people might not like and maybe can even be inappropriate, but he can't help it." Connor turned his attention back to Dexter. "Yeah, but why chicken?" Dexter laughed. "Sometimes I say other chicken things. I'm just glad when it's just chicken. Chicken. Sometimes I say barbecue or pirate ship or I love bubble baths and some chicken other things. Sometimes I say my own name, which is really embarrassing to me for some reason. One time I went through this short period chicken when I said, 'I'll punch,' and everyone I saw thought that was awful. Chicken! People would run away from me thinking I was going to punch them. But I would never do that." "I believe you," I said, trying to maintain a straight face. Just then Dexter cried out, "Barbecue chicken sandwiches," and everyone laughed, especially Dexter. I normally would never in a million years have laughed at someone's disability, but I realized that we were all laughing with Dexter and certainly not at him. And it was okay. I think it made everyone feel better in a way. Josh introduced himself next. Josh made the same whooping sound all the time and had what Andrea explained were several motor tics. This included bending over a lot and sort of airplaying the guitar. Other than that, though, Josh was quiet. The girl introduced herself as Rebecca. I already knew Rebecca slapped herself in the face. She even wore little padded gloves to help soften the blows. I had never realized that Tourette's could be painful or even damaging to the person who had it. Rebecca also grunted and coughed a lot, even though she didn't have a cold or anything. Jack rolled his eyes constantly and shook his head. He also made a strange yelling sound like nothing I'd ever heard. He sucked in air so fast that it almost made a shrieking sound. Zachary rolled his shoulders so much he feared he would need surgery for his already worn-down 15-year-old joints. Mason made constant farting noises with his mouth, and he pulled on his hair, which made his hair kind of patchy because sometimes he would pull some of it out. Mason had over 50 tics, he told us. I couldn't imagine having to deal with that many uncontrollable things going on with me. Besides Dexter, Mason's tics were probably the most embarrassing of the group, so he hardly went out in public, kind of like Connor. Andrea guided us into a discussion on how we felt about going out in public, more specifically, going to places like the movies or the library. Connor wasn't alone in not liking to go to the movies. No one ever really went. Rebecca was the only one who felt okay to go to most places because her vocal tics weren't as loud as the others, and she could almost sound normal at times if you assumed she just had a bad cough or something. People still got annoyed by her frequently, though. And as cool as Dexter was, he was terrified in going out in public. He said, "I'll punch you," in front of some dad holding a baby in a drugstore, and the dad got really mad. Had Dexter's mom not intervened, it would have been bad. Once again, I thought if he had been wearing a t-shirt explaining he had Tourette's syndrome, the situation might have been avoided. Dexter also had an obsessive-compulsive disorder, which Andrea explained often accompanied Tourette's. It was hard for him to leave the house because he worried so much that the stove and the oven were left on at home. He even asked if he could call his mom a couple of times during the meeting so he could have her check them, and Andrea let him. It sounded as though most everyone's parents were supportive and understanding of their Tourette's syndrome. Well, everyone except Connor's parents. Some of their extended family members, such as aunts, uncles, grandparents, often accuse them of faking it for attention, kind of like Connor's dad did. I thought it would be exhausting to put an act like that on all the time. I couldn't fathom why anyone would want to do such a thing, or how anyone could think that they were doing it on purpose. It was strange listening to everyone speak among a cacophony of barking, farting, whooping, shrieking, and chicken. It was also strangely comforting. Nobody cared at all about my lack of arms. They were all far too caught up in their own struggles, and I, for once, felt completely normal in a group of misfits. I hoped Connor felt the same way and would come back with me again. "So," my mom asked as she drove us home, "how was the meeting?" "It was great." And I looked for Connor for confirmation, and Connor said, "Yeah, it was really good." He looked out the window. "Well, that's great. What did you guys talk about?" "All kinds of stuff," I said, "like what everyone's tics were and how they felt about going out in public and things like that." I could see Mom was watching Connor in the rearview mirror. "Do you think it was helpful, Connor?" He said absent-mindedly. "I asked if you thought it was helpful," Mom said again. Connor shrugged. "I guess so. Yeah, it was nice to meet other kids like me. What?" I asked when Connor trailed off. "I'm worried that I'm going to start saying bad things or swearing, kind of like Dexter." "Well, I don't think chicken is really a swear word," I said. "Well, you know what I mean." "You heard Andrea," I said. "That's pretty rare." "Yeah, but Dexter started out like me, just making strange noises, and then one day chicken started coming out of his mouth and everything changed, and I'm afraid the same thing will happen to me and then it'll get worse. Things are hard enough the way they are. I can't imagine how hard it would be if I started saying obnoxious things all the time. I think I'd rather have brain surgery at that point." I told him, "You shouldn't worry about it. I think the more you worry about it and stress yourself out, the worse your tics will be. And maybe if you start saying words, it will just be like normal stuff, like, 'I love African safaris,' or something like that." Connor chuckled and said, "That's normal?" "Well, yeah, for someone who likes African safaris. I don't think you should worry about it too much." "When's the next meeting?" Mom asked, obviously trying to change the subject. "Next month. They meet once a month," I said. "We should go back because we're going to talk about relaxation and how it can help when we're out in public." "You mean when we're out in public?" Connor said. "You don't have to worry about that stuff, Avon." "Well, maybe not that kind of stuff, but I have to deal with people staring at me and treating me like I'm different." "Yeah, but you don't call attention to yourself. I think I'd give up my arms to get rid of Tourette's syndrome." "Don't say that," I said. "I like you just the way you are." "Really?" Connor gave me a skeptical look, and I said directly, "Yes, tics and all." By late fall, the weather was finally starting to cool down to a comfortable temperature. I had read every single tarantula book from the Desert Ridge Middle School Library, the Phoenix Library, and the box that we'd found in the storage shed. I now knew terrifying things about tarantulas, like the type of wasp called the tarantula hawk would sting and paralyze a tarantula and then lay its eggs on it and seal the tarantula up in a burrow, and once the wasps hatched, it would feed on tarantula meat. Ew! I couldn't wait to use that information to shock somebody. I even blogged about it once. I had written several more posts on my blog, mostly stuff about the park, the school, tarantulas, and how I do things without my arms. It was pretty random stuff, so I called my blog Avon's Random Thoughts. Anyway, it wasn't about anything terribly exciting, but I had gained a few more followers. Zion now commented pretty regularly on my posts, and Emily still made her usual LOL and I miss you remarks from time to time. though I hadn't seen any comments from my other friends in Kansas for at least a week. Dad and I practiced soccer in the arena together early on the weekend mornings when it was cool outside. It was wonderful to feel a chill in the air again, but every weekend I felt less and less enthusiastic about getting out of bed to go there. I think Dad must have noticed my interest was fading. He found an old tuba somewhere at the park, and he came to my room one morning, played a horrible screeching sounds on the tuba, and then announced, "All hail Avon Laura Green, future queen of the Desert Ridge Middle School soccer team." I smothered my face with my pillow and told him there was no such thing as a queen in soccer. The next weekend he played the tuba and announced, "All hail Avon Laura Green, future emperor of the Desert Ridge Middle School soccer team." And the weekend after that, "All hail Avon Laura Green, future world dictator of the Desert Ridge Middle School soccer team." Dad had told me that snakes would be hibernating now, so after we practiced soccer, I would hike up the hill behind Stagecoach Pass. I liked being able to look down at the park and the rest of the city, and I liked visiting my giant saguaro cactus. I spent most of the time on the hill looking for tarantulas and collecting quartz rocks. I had quite a big collection now. I wore a loose open bag around my neck so I could easily drop the rocks in with my toes. Most of the kids at schools were now ignoring me completely. I guess they were used to seeing me around by now, so I wasn't getting any more shocked looks. It was more like I didn't exist. I sat next to my giant saguaro one day, looking down at old poor Billy and Fred, endlessly hauling kids around the dirt trail. I thought it might be time for them to retire to the petting zoo. I wondered if we could replace them with a little train like I had seen in the mall. Now that the weather was cooling down, business had picked up a little bit, but my parents told me it was barely enough to keep the park running and cover all the repairs that were building up. I stood and walked around to the backside of the hill, hoping to find some new rocks. A strand of something dark caught my eye. I slipped my foot out of my flat, grabbed it with my toes, and tried to pick it up. It was connected to something in the ground and wouldn't come loose. I put my flat back on and I started kicking at the dirt, trying to unearth whatever was there. Eventually, I loosened enough dirt to get the strand free. I laid it on the ground and studied it. It was caked with dirt, but I could tell it had once been a necklace with a polished turquoise stone set into a dark metal. I lifted it with my toes, slipped it into my bag. I rushed home to call Connor and tell him what I had found. After all, we had seen that necklace before. I wonder where. We'll have to find out next time.